dark, murdering armies whose only honor is atrocity.
The answer to 1984 is 1776. You're listening to The Alex Jones Show. There is a war on for your mind. AZ Central, the Arizona Republic, News 12, and others demonizing myself and Sheriff Paul Babiou. And they try to imply with wordsmithing that I'm a white supremacist. And this caused quite a backlash on the internet. And the ADL was criticizing this sheriff for appearing on hundreds of radio shows, one of which is kind of a white nationalist show called The Political Cesspool. I haven't ever heard it, but I've read about it a few times. It's tame compared to some programs, but clearly is white nationalist. And then they said, oh, but the ADL says that's not the big issue, that Alex Jones makes them look like George Will. And so he then turns to Babiou and says, so you're on the white supremacist show, when this show has nothing to do with that. So very, very serious. We're going to be countering that and tying it in with just the fact that all you hear on MSNBC or CNN is race baiting and race pimping all week long. Every time I turn on television, that's all they're discussing. Was this case with this bureaucrat who had said that, you know, he was a white farmer, so I didn't help him as much as I could. And then her full statement, she stepped away from that a bit, and then the farmers came out and said, oh, she was actually nice to us, and now the media is using that for incredible diversions and distractions. The bottom line is here, the media wants everybody at each other's throats, and both the Republicans and Democrats play this game, so we'll be deciphering that today as well. But that isn't even our top story. I'll tell you about our top story when we come back, which is some really exciting, positive news on this live Sunday broadcast. The 25th day of July, 2010. The websites are prisonplanet.com and Infowars.net. Stay with us. Well, you found it, ladies and gentlemen. The front lines of the InfoWar, the tip of the spear, the #1 radio show online on the planet, and, of course, climbing the ranks of hosts that are on the AM and FM dialed. That is all a testament to the great work of our listeners spreading the word about this broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this live Sunday edition. I am, of course, live 6 days a week, Monday through Friday. We kick off at 11 a.m. Central. Then I come back with an abbreviated 2-hour transmission and broadcast Sundays, 4 to 6 p.m. All times are Central. The websites are prisonplanet.tv, Infowars.net, JonesReport.com, if you want to check them out. And, of course, our big flagship sites, the #1 and #2 alternative news websites in the world, respectively, Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. All right, more ominous news on the economic front. Mainstream news admitting that big mega banks wrote the financial reform bill to give them more power over the U.S. economy. Obama signs a bill that lets banks have U.S. over a barrel once more. That's the London Telegraph headline. That's just part of the big stack of financial news we're going to be going over today. A lot of Tea Party news, major political realignment happening, not just with conservatives, but also people that consider themselves progressives, the new word for communist, which, of course, is all financed by George Soros and the big banks. They love communism. Idiots at the grassroots vote for it. The middle class is destroyed. All the money is handed to the elite, who, on record, don't want a middle class and are waging war against new money. We've also got Texas newspaper, the Cypress Times, reporting multiple ranches in Laredo, Texas, taken over by Los Zetas. 3 months ago, the media was laughing at the fact that over 80 miles of Arizona is basically off limits to citizens, major highways, roads, and national and state parks. Now that's admitted, with the federal government putting up signs everywhere saying don't go into these national parks, don't drive down this highway, it's not safe. Well, now that's happening in Texas, and we've got multiple sheriffs and others on record there. And if you want to read the full breakdown of this, Kurt Nimmo wrote a story yesterday on Saturday at Infowars.com. Mexican drug mafia invades Texas, major shootouts. It's just intensifying. A federal judge is making noises that he is going to rule against the federal lawsuit, saying that on its face it appears to have no standing against Arizona because it doesn't set up checkpoints and arrest Hispanics, as the media has been lying. It says if they pull over a drunk driver or they pull somebody over for speeding and they have no ID and they're an illegal alien, they're going to be taken to jail. Now, if you don't like that system, fine, but it should also be that citizens don't have to have licenses and don't have to have registration. I don't have to have insurance. I mean, if you don't like that and think it's a police state, and it very well may be. You know, 60, 70 years ago, Americans wouldn't put up with that. Now we do. But the question is, why are the illegal aliens above the law? And it's because 800-plus cities are sanctuary cities, and they want the illegals here to drive down the wages and to be a voting bloc to vote for big government and anti-Second Amendment. And that's why I'm opposed to this, because you have a socialist government with all this welfare. You've got hundreds of millions of people worldwide trying to come here, 30-plus million that have come here in the last decade, most of which are on welfare while working jobs as well. But they use it as a supplement, and why not? The government gives it to them. And we've got 46 states bankrupt or on the verge of bankruptcy, according to Bloomberg and their breakdown analysis. So the country is going into depression. We cannot pay for this. So we'll also be discussing that coming up. And I want to get into how the media is using race as their main diversion, their main distraction. And not just the Democrats. Republicans are playing into this as well, though the Democrats are more brazen. Oh, you don't want government health care? You're a racist. You don't want to have gun control. You're a racist. You don't want to have open borders. You're a racist. Alex Jones, criticizes the prior knowledge of 9/11. He must be a racist. In fact, I'm going to play a clip coming up in the next hour of Television 12 interrogating Sheriff Paul Babiou, who we've interviewed, and attacking me for saying Obama is guilty of treason, not securing our borders. I mean, that's what the Constitution states. It's one of the few things the federal government is charged with doing. The feds do everything that's outside their jurisdiction and nothing that's in their jurisdiction. So we're going to be discussing that. But for the first few segments today, I want to talk about this article, and I want to talk about Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck. And then I want to open the phones up. And, this is not a radio show where we talk about other talk show hosts most of the time. This is certainly not MSNBC, where it seems to be the Glenn Beck bashing channel. They have so few viewers. I mean, most of their shows have about 250,000, maybe. Their top shows have 500,000. They are a joke. This radio show, conservatively, just with the stations that we're on that actually subscribe to Arbitron, has more than 500,000 listeners per hour conservatively. Well, that's what the top shows on MSNBC have. They are a paper tiger. They are hollow. They are a rotten barn filled with termites. They literally are a joke. I mean, a station like WABC in New York probably has 500,000 listeners every hour by itself. Rush Limbaugh has over 10 million a day. Coast to Coast AM over 10 million a day. Sean Hannity over 10 million. Glenn Beck over 10 million. This radio show, conservatively, over a 3-hour weekday show, has over 2 million listeners. Over a weekend show, it's about 1 million. Why do we then see advertising rates being charged by MSNBC during their primetime shows that are roughly, and I've looked at their rate card, roughly 40 to 50 times what this show cost? That are roughly 10 to 15 times what Limbaugh charges. Why? Because it's all about being part of the clique, and they're good at being posers, at make-believing that they're the establishment, at make-believing that they have the moral authority, and they've got fancy teleprompters they're reading off of, and these fancy sets, and they look authoritative. But the truth is they have collapsed. They're not collapsing. They have collapsed. CNN has collapsed. They've totally collapsed. Fox News, their top shows, 3.5 million viewers. That has a lot of prestige. That is still a paper tiger compared to something like Rush Limbaugh. Or even say, I've looked at the numbers for a show like Beyond the Beltway on a couple hundred stations, only on Sunday nights. I've met the host of it. I've looked at their numbers. They've probably got over 1 million people in 2 hours tuning in. And you can buy advertising on there for peanuts. And I'm not getting into advertising here today. The issue is this all dovetails with complete congruency with what I heard driving in here. Driving in to the show today, I was listening to a station outside Austin. Our local affiliate, 590 AM, carries Limbaugh during the week. But I was listening to a rebroadcast of Limbaugh for about 30 minutes in the car and on the way to work. It was actually on WOAI. And I was driving in, and I literally almost pulled over. And then once I got here, it was about an hour to showtime.